Crash landing. The crash echoed through the valley, a deafening boom that shook the snowy forest. Marcus Hale's eyes snapped open. For years of isolation had not dulled the instincts that had kept him alive on 3 continents. His hand found the Glock under his pillow before he was even fully awake. Barefoot on the cold wooden floor, he was already moving. Something massive had just torn through the trees west of his cabin. He pressed his forehead to the window, scanning the snow-covered forest. A dark trail cut through the fresh powder, too straight, too deliberate to be random. His instincts told him this was no ordinary animal. Pulling on boots and a thick jacket, he chambered the Glock and stepped onto the porch. Steam rose from the snow where something had dragged itself forward. Then he saw her. She lay crumpled at the bottom of his steps, one hand reaching forward. Her skin glowed faintly blue under the pale moonlight. Silver-white hair, matted with a dark fluid, spilled across the snow. Marcus froze for a moment. Alien. Her tactical armor, black and form-fitting, was torn by strange energy burns. Weapons hung from her belt and thigh holsters. He crouched beside her, checking the angles around his cabin. The forest was silent. Her pulse was faint but steady. He pressed 2 fingers against her throat. Cooler than human, textured like fine leather. Then her eyes opened. Vertical pupils, amber irises, sharp and predatory. She tried to reach for a weapon, but Marcus caught her wrist. The alien went limp. Consciousness fled her body, and Marcus dragged her inside. His cabin, quiet and bare, became a temporary field hospital. He laid her on the kitchen table. Her armor resisted every attempt to remove it easily. Marcus grabbed trauma shears and began cutting. Blue skin revealed itself beneath the armor, covered in burns, bruises, and dark fluid leaking from deep wounds. 3 plasma burns ran across her ribs. Her left arm was bent at a strange angle. He worked fast, following the rhythm of field medicine drilled into him years ago. Her eyes fluttered open, and she tried to speak, but he cut her off. "Don't talk," he said. She ignored him. "Why?" she asked, voice strained but even. "Because you're dying," he said. "Enemy or not." Her eyes narrowed. "You should kill me." "Probably," he admitted, wrapping her ribs with gauze. She studied him carefully. Scars crisscrossed his bare chest. Bullet wounds, knife slashes, burn marks. She gripped his wrist briefly. "Why show mercy?" Marcus met her gaze. "Because I can," he said. Her grip loosened, and darkness claimed her again. The night passed in a blur of bandages, stitches, and careful monitoring. Marcus worked tirelessly, setting her arm, packing wounds, stopping the bleeding. The blue glow of her skin lit the small cabin like a dim lantern. By dawn, she had stopped bleeding, and her breathing had steadied. Marcus washed his hands, watching pinkish-purple water swirl down the drain. His satellite phone sat on the counter, silent for 3 years. It rang. Marcus froze. The phone had been off since the day he disappeared into the mountains. "Marcus," a voice said, calm and sharp. "Bishop," Marcus replied cautiously. "This line is dead." "Apparently not. You have something very valuable in your cabin," the voice said. "The alien operative crash-landed after failing a mission. Her people want her back. The Federation wants her dead. You've put yourself in an interesting position." Marcus tightened his jaw. "I didn't put myself anywhere. Curious coincidence. You should know, her species sees mercy as weakness. Restrain her before she wakes." Bishop warned before the line went dead. Marcus moved quickly. Military-grade restraints were pulled from his supply closet. Her wrists and ankles were secured to the table. Her eyes opened, vertical pupils sharp and aware. "Smart," she said, her voice stronger now. "I would have killed you in your sleep." "I know," Marcus replied. She tilted her head. "You saved my life," she said. "Yes," Marcus answered. "Why?" "Because you were worth saving," he said simply. The alien's eyes, amber and intense, studied him. She was Lyra Corrin, an operative of the Sithral Empire. She spoke formally, like reading a report. You are my captor. What are your terms? I'm not your captor, Marcus said. You're restrained because you said you would kill me. That's it. Lyra's gaze never left him. You have field medical training. Military? Past tense, Marcus admitted. You were important once, she said, tone curious. You had intelligence contacts. Important enough to live alone in strategic isolation, he replied. Lyra tilted her head again, studying him. You're stalling while calculating escape options. Yes, Marcus said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. But you're not leaving this table until I get answers. And I'm not providing them until I understand why you saved me, Lyra replied. Marcus thought carefully. Because leaving you to die would make me less than I want to be. Lyra's pupils dilated rapidly. I don't understand your reasoning, she said. Probably, yet I did it anyway, he said. Hours passed. Marcus kept her in view while preparing coffee. Lyra noticed. You're watching me, she said. I'm watching you, he said. For both our safety. You analyze everything, she noted. It keeps operatives alive, Marcus replied. A fragile understanding began to form. Lyra, trained to be a weapon without mercy, found herself questioning why a human would act against all tactical logic. Marcus, isolated for years, realized the first stirrings of companionship since leaving the world behind. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. Inside, the cabin became a strange bubble of tension, trust, and curiosity. Lyra, the alien assassin, lay restrained on the kitchen table, alive because Marcus Hale chose mercy over logic. And somewhere deep in the valley, forces far more powerful than either of them had already begun to take notice. The story had only just begun. The field hospital. Morning light filtered through the frost-covered windows of Marcus Hale's cabin. Outside, the snow lay undisturbed except for the dark trail leading to the porch. Inside, Lyra Corrin's blue skin glowed faintly under the pale light. Her breathing was steady, but Marcus knew her injuries were far from healed. He moved quickly but carefully, checking the supplies he had. The cabin wasn't equipped for alien trauma, but Marcus had always been resourceful. Bandages, gauze, and a few leftover medical tools could be improvised. He washed his hands and returned to Lyra, who lay on the table, restrained but alert. Her amber eyes followed his every move. You're awake again, Marcus said. Lyra's pupils contracted sharply. Of course, I'm not a fragile creature. No one said you were, Marcus replied, keeping his voice calm. You're alive because I treated your wounds. That's it. She tilted her head. You broke every protocol of my species by showing mercy. Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he began examining the deep plasma burns across her ribs. He pressed lightly, noting the areas that were still raw. Lyra flinched but didn't speak. Her left arm was bent wrong, likely a compound fracture. He said it carefully, listening to her breathing, calculating every movement. Her purple-tinted blood had dried into a strange gel-like seal over some wounds. Marcus carefully removed it, cleaning her injuries and packing the worst ones with gauze. Every touch, every adjustment required precision. One mistake could kill her. You move like a human medic, Lyra said quietly. I was trained for more than humans, Marcus replied. I worked in field operations long enough to know how to keep someone alive. Lyra's amber eyes narrowed. Why bother with me? Marcus paused. He looked at the alien who had tried to kill him less than 24 hours ago. Because I choose to. Leaving someone to die. That's not who I am. For a moment, Lyra said nothing. Then softly, you are illogical. Maybe, Marcus said, but so is mercy sometimes. Doesn't mean it's wrong. Hours passed as Marcus worked. He set her broken arm, stitched what could be stitched, and wrapped bandages where he couldn't. He improvised splints for her legs, made a sling for her arm, and monitored her vital signs with careful attention. All the while, Lyra studied him, noting each decision, each motion. You're patient, she said finally. Most humans would panic. Most humans would kill me to stop the risk. Marcus shook his head. I've learned patience matters more than fear. You survive by thinking ahead, not by panicking. Lyra's lips curved slightly, a ghost of a smile. Survival by intelligence. I approve. He glanced at her carefully. I have to keep you restrained. Not because I don't trust you, but because if you wake fully in this state, you're dangerous. Dangerous? She asked, voice calm but edged with challenge. I am trained to eliminate threats. I could have killed you in your sleep. I know, Marcus said. That's why I saved your life. Lyra's pupils dilated, a silent acknowledgement of his words. She did not struggle further. The cabin was quiet, except for the occasional creak of the wooden floor or the hiss of the kerosene lamp. Marcus brewed coffee, glancing at Lyra as he worked. She watched him silently, calculating, waiting. You analyze everything, Marcus said, breaking the silence. You do the same, Lyra replied. Every movement, every choice. I can see it. Then you understand why I do this, he said. For the first time, Lyra's amber eyes softened slightly. She had never experienced this before. Someone showing mercy without strategy, without manipulation, without an ulterior motive. It made her pause, question, and wonder. Why me? She asked. Marcus leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. Because you were worth saving. Not for politics, not for reward, not because someone told me to. Simply because I could. Lyra's gaze studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke carefully. I am Lyra Corrin, Sithral Empire operative. Mission failed. Extraction failed. You saved me. That is unusual. Not unusual for me, Marcus said simply. You are human, she said, almost a statement, almost a question. And I make choices, he replied. Some are logical, some aren't. Saving you was one of them. Lyra's head tilted, her vertical pupils narrowing and widening in rapid succession. You confuse me, she said. I am trained to understand threats and eliminate them. You preserve them. Marcus shrugged lightly. Maybe you'll understand one day, or maybe you won't. Doesn't matter. You're alive now. The day wore on and Marcus kept Lyra monitored. He gave her water, adjusted bandages, and kept her comfortable as best he could. Slowly, she began to relax, though her awareness never waned. Every movement, every glance was tactical, as if calculating escape, attack, and observation all at once. By nightfall, Marcus finally allowed himself to breathe. Lyra's pulse had stabilized, and her breathing was even. He poured himself another cup of coffee and leaned against the counter, studying the alien before him. For the first time, he realized he was not just saving a life. He was challenging everything she had been trained to believe. Lyra's gaze met his, amber eyes soft but still sharp. You are different, she said quietly. Marcus smiled faintly, sipping his coffee. Different isn't always bad. Outside, the snow fell gently, covering the tracks she had made. Inside, a fragile trust had begun to form, one built on mercy, skill, and the unspoken acknowledgement that survival sometimes required more than strength. It required understanding. And deep in the forest, shadows moved. Forces far beyond the cabin walls were already aware of Lyra's presence. The game had begun, and Marcus Hale had just made himself a target. But inside the small cabin, for now, Lyra Corrin was alive. And that was enough. The interrogation. The cabin was quiet except for the soft crackle of the kerosene lamp. Lyra Corrin lay restrained on the kitchen table, amber eyes fixed on Marcus Hale. He moved deliberately, leaning against the counter with a mug of coffee in hand. You're awake early, Marcus said, taking a slow sip. Lyra's pupils contracted sharply. I never sleep when I'm in enemy territory. Marcus studied her, noting the way she analyzed every movement, every shadow, every object. Good habit, he said. Keeps people alive. She tilted her head, scanning the room. You are well prepared. Restraints, tools, medicine. This cabin is fortified. I like to be ready, Marcus replied. You don't get this far in my world by being careless. Her gaze narrowed. Then why save me? You had every reason to leave me to die. Marcus set his mug down, stepping closer. Because leaving you to die makes me less than I want to be. I don't do everything for logic or gain. Sometimes, I do it because it's the right thing. Lyra's pupils dilated rapidly. She didn't move but studied him, as if testing the truth of his words. You are illogical. I do not understand your reasoning. Probably, Marcus said quietly, but that doesn't make it wrong. For a long moment, silence filled the cabin. Then Lyra spoke, her voice calm but precise. I am Lyra Corrin, operative of the Cithral Empire. My mission failed. I should not be alive. Yet, you preserved my life. That is anomalous. I'm human, Marcus replied simply. I make choices. Some are logical, some are not. Saving you was one of the ones that felt right. Lyra's vertical pupils contracted and expanded as she studied him. In my culture, mercy is weakness. Failure to eliminate threats is punished. You defy everything I have been trained to believe. Marcus leaned on the table, meeting her gaze. Maybe there's more than one way to survive. Maybe mercy isn't weakness. It's a choice. Her lips curved slightly, almost a smile. You confuse me. I am a weapon, trained to follow orders, to eliminate targets, to survive at any cost. You preserved me. I did, Marcus said. And I'd do it again. Lyra studied him, her amber eyes flicking to the scars on his chest. Bullet wounds, knife slashes, burn patterns. You have been trained, she observed. Military? Intelligence. Marcus shrugged. Field operations. Protection details. High-value targets. Past tense. You left the world, Lyra said quietly, still restrained. Isolated yourself. Yes, Marcus admitted. Because some things are better done alone. Lyra's gaze remained on him. You analyze everything. Every movement, every decision. You are always calculating. How many weapons do you carry? Marcus glanced down. 3. Glock, small sidearm, knife. Why? You could have lied, she said. But you didn't. That is unusual. I didn't want to waste time, he said. Trust has to start somewhere. Even between enemies. Lyra studied him, her pupils narrowing. Trust is a liability. Can be exploited. Emotional investment compromises judgment. Marcus nodded. Sometimes it can also save lives. The tension in the cabin shifted. For the first time, Lyra's expression softened. Not fully, but enough to show curiosity. She had been trained to be a weapon, to see humans as unpredictable and weak. Marcus Hale was proving her wrong, simply by choosing mercy. I have questions, Lyra said finally, about your reasoning, about this anomaly of compassion. Marcus leaned against the counter. Ask. Her voice became clinical, almost a report. Why save me? You knew I was dangerous. You could have left me to die, yet you preserved my life. Because leaving you to die would make me less than I want to be, he repeated. Lyra's pupils dilated, flickering rapidly. I do not understand. This is irrational. I know, Marcus said. But sometimes, being human is about more than logic. It's about conscience. A long pause followed. Lyra's gaze dropped to her bound hands, then back to his face. You are different, she said quietly. Yes, Marcus replied. Different doesn't always mean wrong. The conversation turned, as all true interrogations do, to their pasts. Lyra explained her mission. I was sent to eliminate Aldrich Vashon, a colonial Federation diplomat. He was negotiating a defense treaty. Orders were clear. Terminate the target. Extraction failed. My ship was destroyed. I crashed here. Marcus nodded slowly. And she had a child, Lyra said, voice quiet, almost reverent. 8 years old. She came home early. I hesitated for 3 seconds. I couldn't complete the mission. The alarm was triggered. Extraction impossible. I failed. You couldn't kill a child, Marcus said. No, she admitted. But those 3 seconds meant I failed my mission. My empire would have executed me for that hesitation. Marcus studied her face. I know about failure. I lost my team once. For doing what was right, we were dishonored, broken apart. Some didn't survive. But leaving the right path, that's how you stay human. Lyra's gaze lingered on him. You understand consequences. But you still saved me. Because I didn't want to become something I hate, Marcus said quietly. A weapon without conscience. That's not who I am. Lyra's pupils flickered, her vertical eyes reflecting both curiosity and uncertainty. Perhaps there is another way. Marcus looked at her, faint smile tugging at his lips. That's why you're alive. Outside, the snow fell softly, covering the traces of their past night's chaos. Inside, two very different beings sat in quiet observation of one another, each calculating, each learning, each testing the limits of trust and mercy. The interrogation had begun, but the answers they sought would only grow more dangerous with each passing hour. Forces beyond the cabin were already moving, and Marcus Hale and Lyra Corrin were about to find themselves in a game far larger than either had imagined. Secrets of the Empire. The fire crackled quietly in the cabin stove, casting long shadows across the walls. Outside, the snowstorm had intensified, blanketing the forest in white. Inside, Marcus Hale watched Lyra Corrin carefully. She was still restrained, but her eyes, amber and alert, studied him with a mix of curiosity and caution. You've said you were trained to eliminate threats, Marcus began. Tell me about your mission. Why were you here? Lyra's gaze flickered, but she answered evenly. My mission was to eliminate Aldrich Vashon, a Colonial Federation diplomat. He was negotiating a defense treaty. My orders were clear. Remove him and leave no trace. Extraction failed. My ship was destroyed during the operation. And? Marcus asked, his voice calm but firm. She hesitated, then spoke with precision. He had a daughter, 8 years old. She came home early from school. I paused. 3 seconds. That hesitation cost me the mission. Marcus's brow furrowed. 3 seconds. Yes, she said, her tone flat. 3 seconds to decide whether to complete the mission. I could not bring myself to kill a child. The alarm was triggered. Extraction became impossible. I failed. Marcus nodded slowly, understanding more than she knew. Failure has consequences, he said quietly. I've seen it destroy lives. But you're alive because I chose to save you, not because you succeeded. Lyra's pupils contracted and expanded, a sign of her growing confusion. Your reasoning is incomprehensible. Why save me when I am a weapon? I am trained to complete missions without hesitation, without mercy. You defy everything I have been taught. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Sometimes doing the right thing is more important than following orders. Even weapons can be wrong. Her amber eyes narrowed. Weapons are not allowed to be wrong. They are to be precise, effective, and unemotional. Mercy is weakness. And yet you're alive, Marcus said. Alive because someone chose conscience over efficiency. A long silence fell between them. Lyra studied him, her vertical pupils sharp, calculating. You are human, she said softly, almost to herself. And still you act against logic. Marcus smiled faintly. Sometimes logic isn't enough. She seemed to consider his words, a flicker of something unfamiliar crossing her sharp features. You saved me, not for strategy, not for reward, but because it was your choice? Yes, Marcus said, and I'd do it again. Lyra's eyes, usually so disciplined, softened slightly. Perhaps there is another way to exist beyond orders and efficiency. Marcus studied her. That's why I saved you. Because life isn't only about mission success. It's about choices, and sometimes those choices define who we are. Lyra's gaze turned inward for a moment, as if analyzing herself. Then she spoke, her voice careful, deliberate. The Federation wanted him dead. My empire wants me back. Both sides see me as expendable. And yet, I am alive here in this cabin. Because of you. Because you chose mercy. Marcus nodded. And that's a risk I accept. Her eyes widened slightly. Risk? For the sake of compassion? Yes, he said. It's part of what makes us human. Even for someone like me, who has walked away from the world. Lyra leaned back slightly, studying him with a newfound curiosity. I am Lyra Corrin. I was forged to be a weapon trained to suppress emotion. But here, I see something I do not understand. Conscience. Mercy. Choices that defy protocol. You saved me, and in doing so, challenged my understanding of existence. Marcus's eyes softened. Sometimes survival is not just about efficiency. It's about hope. About understanding that even enemies can have value. Lyra's pupils flickered again. The first signs of doubt or perhaps reflection. You make me question my training. The Sithral Empire teaches that mercy is weakness, that hesitation is fatal. Yet, here I am, alive because you acted differently. And I do not know how to feel about that. Marcus took a deep breath. You can start by surviving. Then we figure out the rest. A sudden beeping interrupted the moment. Marcus froze. He moved to his desk and picked up the small satellite communicator he rarely used. The line had been dead for years. Marcus Hale, a voice said. Smooth, controlled, familiar. Bishop, Marcus said, tense. This line should be dead. Apparently not, Bishop replied. I see you have a guest. Valuable. Dangerous. Your cabin is no longer private. Forces are moving to retrieve her or destroy her. Your choice of mercy has consequences. Marcus's jaw tightened. I'm aware. Good, Bishop said calmly. Her species sees mercy as weakness. Restrain her. Control her until she regains full consciousness. You've put yourself on their radar. Make no mistakes. The line went dead. Marcus exhaled slowly, his mind racing. Lyra's presence here was no longer a secret. Powerful entities were coming for her, and now he was a target as well. He turned back to her. They know you survived. They'll come for you. Lyra's pupils dilated. Then we must prepare, she said, her voice steady, though Marcus could see the tension in her body. I am capable even in this state, but I require stabilization first. Marcus nodded. I'll handle that, but you'll remain restrained until you're fully conscious. No exceptions. Understandable, she replied. I am curious. Why do you act as you do? Why show mercy when everything in your world suggests survival comes from efficiency and strength? Marcus met her gaze. Because survival isn't enough. Life without choice, without conscience, is hollow. You survive, yes, but to live, that requires more. That's why I saved you. Lyra's eyes flickered, studying him closely. For the first time, the weapon she had been trained to be seemed uncertain, vulnerable even. Her body relaxed slightly, though she remained restrained. You are human, she said again, almost in awe. And yet, you defy every expectation I have. Your choices, they challenge the rules of my existence. Yes, Marcus said quietly. And maybe that's what survival really is, not just following orders, not just being efficient, but making the choices that define who we are. Outside, the storm raged on, masking the world beyond the cabin. Inside, a fragile trust had begun to form. Lyra Corrin, once a weapon, now questioned the code she had lived by. Marcus Hale, once isolated and disillusioned, found himself engaged in a battle not just for survival, but for the possibility of understanding, trust, and something more than just existence. And somewhere beyond the mountains, forces both human and alien were already moving, aware of the fragile bubble of life and trust that had formed inside the small cabin. The game had begun, and the rules were changing. A fragile trust. The snowstorm outside had turned the world into a white blur. Inside Marcus Hale's cabin, the small kerosene lamp flickered, casting shadows on the walls. Lyra Corrin lay on the table, bandaged and restrained, but her amber eyes followed Marcus as he moved about the cabin, checking supplies and preparing for what was coming. They're coming for me, Lyra said quietly, her voice calm but precise. Your people, my empire, everyone who knows I survived. They will not wait. Marcus nodded, setting a small tray of tools beside him. I know. That's why we need to be ready. I don't plan on letting anyone take you without a fight. Lyra's pupils contracted sharply. A fight? You're outnumbered. Maybe, Marcus said. But preparation and strategy can change the odds. He paused, glancing at her. You're not fully conscious yet. I need you stabilized before anything else. She tilted her head, studying him. I am capable even in this state. But restraint is prudent. Marcus moved closer, adjusting her arm carefully. Good. You need to trust me. For both our sakes. Lyra's amber eyes flickered. Trust is temporary. Vulnerability is dangerous. I know, Marcus said softly. But vulnerability doesn't always mean weakness. Sometimes it keeps you alive. For the first time, Lyra seemed to consider his words. She had been trained her entire life to suppress doubt, emotion, and hesitation. Marcus Hale was teaching her, without words, that survival could include more than efficiency. Hours passed in quiet vigilance. Marcus monitored her vitals, adjusted bandages, and brewed coffee. Lyra observed, learning his habits and methods. Though restrained, she began to anticipate his actions, understanding that his calm efficiency was itself a weapon. You are disciplined, she said finally, breaking the silence. Every movement, every decision, precise. Even in isolation. Marcus smiled faintly. Discipline keeps people alive, and experience teaches you to anticipate what's coming next. Lyra's pupils narrowed. You are not like others. You act with conscience. You save lives even when there is no advantage. Sometimes there isn't supposed to be an advantage, Marcus said. Sometimes doing the right thing is its own reward. Her amber eyes lingered on him, absorbing his words. I have never experienced this. Mercy, choice of vulnerability. It is unsettling. Marcus leaned back against the counter. That's part of why you survived. You're learning there's another way to exist beyond the orders, beyond the training. You can survive and still be more than a weapon. Lyra studied him silently. Then she spoke carefully, as if testing her own voice. If I follow your reasoning, then trust is a tool, not a weakness. Exactly, Marcus said. Trust is a tool. Use it wisely and it can save lives. Misuse it, and it can get you killed. A faint hum outside caught Marcus's attention. He moved to the window, peering into the white blur of snow. They're out there, he muttered. Lyra's pupils dilated sharply. Already? Yes, Marcus said. You didn't think this would go unnoticed, did you? He turned back to her. We need to form a temporary alliance. You're skilled, I'm skilled. Together we stand a chance. Her lips curved slightly, a ghost of a smile. A temporary alliance, she said. I can work with that, but only on my terms. Marcus nodded. Fair enough. My terms. Stay alive, stay restrained until you're fully conscious, and cooperate. I'll handle the rest. Agreed, she said, her amber eyes flickering with calculation. But make no mistake, I am still dangerous. I know, Marcus replied, and I expect it. That's why you're restrained. They moved into a careful routine. Marcus prepared meals, monitored her injuries, and kept watch on the forest beyond the cabin. Lyra, though bound, began to offer tactical observations, noting weak points in the cabin's defenses and possible escape routes. Marcus listened, silently impressed by her intelligence and analytical mind. You analyze everything, Marcus said one evening, watching her eyes follow his every movement. You do the same, Lyra replied. Muscle memory, observational skills, experience. You are human, yet you think like a weapon. Efficient, but with conscience. Marcus chuckled softly. I've had practice, but I've learned that efficiency isn't enough. You also need judgment, empathy, understanding. Lyra's amber eyes narrowed. Empathy is dangerous. cloud's judgment. And yet it saved your life, Marcus said. A long silence followed, punctuated only by the wind outside. Both were aware of the unspoken truth. The forces coming for Lyra would not hesitate, and the fragile trust forming between them could be the difference between life and death. "Why me?" Lyra asked quietly. "Why save me when logic dictates you should leave me to die?" Marcus met her gaze steadily. "Because I choose to. Because I refuse to become someone who follows orders blindly. Because life without conscience isn't worth surviving." Her pupils flickered, amber eyes wide with contemplation. "Perhaps there is another way, a path beyond orders and efficiency. Perhaps it is worth exploring." Marcus nodded slowly. "That's what survival really is. Not just following orders, not just being a weapon, but making the choices that define who you are." Outside, the snowstorm raged, hiding the world beyond the cabin. Inside, two beings, from different worlds, sat in quiet observation of one another. One had been trained to eliminate without mercy. The other had been trained to survive without compromise. Now, they were learning from each other, forming a fragile trust that could save them both. And far beyond the cabin, forces were already moving. Intelligence networks, military operatives, and agents of the Sithral Empire were converging, unaware that Marcus Hale and Lyra Corrin had begun to build something far more dangerous than any weapon. An alliance built on trust, strategy, and the unexpected power of conscience. The fragile trust between them was the first step. The next steps would test everything they believed about loyalty, survival, and the rules of war. Life or death. The wind howled outside, rattling the cabin windows and sending snow swirling into the forest. Inside, Marcus Hale worked quietly, checking Lyra Corrin's vitals again. Her pulse was racing, her breathing shallow, and her purple-tinged blood was seeping through the bandages faster than before. "She's rejecting Earth's atmosphere," Marcus muttered under his breath, scanning the medical files he had pulled from the black market database. "Her immune system, it's failing." Lyra stirred on the table, her amber eyes opening slowly. "Marcus, I feel weak," she said, voice trembling, though still measured. "You're in trouble," Marcus said firmly. "Your body's rejecting the environment here. If I don't act fast, you won't survive the night." Her pupils contracted sharply. "Then act." Marcus's mind raced. He didn't have access to alien immunosuppressants, and human drugs could kill her. He sifted through files and protocols, his fingers trembling slightly as he pieced together a dangerous solution. "There's a protocol for human organ transplant recipients," he muttered, scanning the screen. "It's not designed for your species, but it might suppress your immune response long enough to stabilize you." Lyra's amber eyes widened. "Human medicine, dangerous. Possible death." "Possible death," Marcus admitted. "Or certain death if I do nothing. We don't have time to debate ethics." She studied him, her vertical pupils narrowing. "Why do you care?" "Because I decided you're worth saving," Marcus said simply. For the first time, Lyra hesitated. She had been trained to suppress emotion, to see life and death as numbers and objectives. And yet, here was a human risking everything for her survival. Marcus prepared the injection carefully, following the protocol as closely as he could adapt. Lyra's body convulsed as he inserted the needle, her muscles tightening violently. Her breathing became rapid, shallow, and uneven. "Everything hurts," he warned, keeping a firm hand on her arm. The convulsions worsened for a moment, her body trembling as the alien gel-like seal over her wounds began breaking down. Dark purple fluid leaked through the bandages. Marcus gritted his teeth, ignoring his own rising panic. "You can do this," he muttered to himself. "Stay calm. Follow procedure." Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by Lyra's ragged breathing and the hiss of the kerosene lamp. Marcus monitored her vitals, adjusting the dosage carefully, watching the numbers flicker on his makeshift monitor. Finally, slowly, the convulsions began to ease. Her breathing steadied. The dark fluid stopped seeping. Marcus exhaled, his shoulders relaxing for the first time in hours. It worked, he said quietly, stepping back. Lyra's amber eyes opened fully, focusing on him. You saved me again, she whispered, her voice weak but filled with an emotion she didn't yet understand. Marcus shook his head, smiling faintly. I don't understand me either, but you're alive. That's what matters. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself a long, unguarded look at the human who had defied logic and training to preserve her life. She had been trained to kill, to follow orders, to suppress doubt and compassion. And yet here she was, alive because of mercy. Why? She asked again softly. Why risk yourself for me? Marcus met her gaze steadily. Because leaving you to die would make me less than I want to be, and I refuse to become what the world tried to make me. Cold, cynical, unfeeling. Her pupils flickered rapidly, a sign of internal conflict. For the first time she felt something unfamiliar, hope. Hope that maybe there was another way to exist. Not just as a weapon, not just following orders, but as a being capable of choice. The cabin was silent except for the crackle of the stove and Lyra's steadying breathing. Outside, the storm continued to rage, hiding the forest and masking the approach of any threats. But Marcus knew it was only a matter of time. The Sithral Empire would not leave their operative alive for long. We need to prepare, Marcus said, moving to gather his gear. They'll come for you soon. And when they do, we'll need to be ready. Lyra's amber eyes followed him, alert, calculating. I trust you, she said finally, a statement that shocked even herself. For now. But trust is temporary. Marcus smiled faintly. Temporary is enough. It's all we need right now. He checked the restraints one last time, ensuring they were secure but not cruel. Lyra flexed against them experimentally, testing her strength. Marcus watched calmly, ready for any movement. Do not misunderstand, Lyra said, her voice firm. I am still dangerous. I know, Marcus replied, and I expect it. That's why we survived this far. Outside, the snowstorm masked any sound of approaching danger. Inside, a fragile alliance had formed. Two beings, from different worlds, relying on each other to survive the coming storm. For Lyra, the night had revealed something she had never known. Mercy could exist even in the middle of war. For Marcus, the night had reminded him why he had chosen isolation. To protect life, even when it defied reason. The night was far from over. Forces were moving in, intelligence networks tracking every signal, every anomaly. The fragile trust between human and alien would soon be tested as never before. But for now, Marcus Hale and Lyra Corrin had one thing in common: survival. And sometimes, survival was only possible when someone chose to risk everything for another. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the cabin, life held its fragile, precious balance. The storm arrives. The snowstorm outside had become a white wall, cutting off the cabin from the world. Inside, Marcus Hale checked the restraints on Lyra Corrin one last time. Her amber eyes were sharp, focused, but for the first time, she seemed calm. They're close, Marcus said quietly, listening to the wind. Sensors picked up movement. Military-grade operatives, probably Sithral Empire retrieval teams. Lyra's pupils contracted sharply. Then we prepare. I am capable, even bound. But I will fight if necessary. Marcus nodded. Good, because if they breach the cabin, we fight together. Outside, the storm masked approaching footsteps. Snow swirled around the trees, erasing tracks and hiding their presence. Inside, Marcus checked his weapons. Glock in hand, knife on his boot, and a small sidearm strapped to his hip. Every movement was deliberate, every decision calculated. Lyra studied him carefully. You are predictable, she said, and dangerous, but human, not entirely a weapon. Marcus gave a faint smile. I've been called worse. Hours passed in tense silence. The storm continued, a thick curtain of white that hid the approach of deadly forces. And then, a sudden noise. The crunch of boots against snow outside, faint but unmistakable. "They're here," Marcus muttered. Lyra tensed, testing the restraints with her strength. Marcus held her gaze. "Not yet. We fight together when the time comes." The first operative appeared at the edge of the forest, moving carefully, scanning for signs of life. Marcus had prepared traps and alarms, and a small tripwire sent a warning signal as the operative approached. Lyra's amber eyes flickered with approval. "Clever," she said. Marcus whispered, "We don't have much time. Once they realize the cabin is occupied, they'll come in force." The door shuddered under a heavy impact. The first of the Cithral agents was already forcing their way inside. Marcus fired, precise and controlled. The operative went down silently, leaving the cabin still tense but momentarily safe. Lyra's restraints strained, but she didn't struggle. Instead, she focused, her amber eyes scanning the room, calculating movement and angles. Marcus noticed her tactical mind at work, even while bound. "They're better than I expected," he muttered. "We need to move fast." The second wave of operatives burst in, and the cabin became a scene of controlled chaos. Marcus moved swiftly, taking cover, firing with accuracy. Lyra, still restrained, used her body to brace, push, and strike where she could, her strength and training still deadly. "You're faster than you look," Marcus said, nodding to her as they fought. "Not look," Lyra replied, teeth gritted. "Calculated." The battle was tense and brutal. Marcus and Lyra moved in tandem, instinctively covering each other's blind spots. The storm outside masked the sounds of gunfire and movement, but inside, every second was life or death. Finally, the last operative fell, leaving the cabin silent except for the crackle of the stove and the heavy breathing of the two survivors. Lyra collapsed against the table, exhausted but alive. Marcus checked her vitals. She was bruised and tired, but stable. "You survived," she said softly, amber eyes meeting his. "Yes," Marcus said, "and so did you, because we fought together." A quiet moment followed, heavy with tension and understanding. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to trust him fully. She had been trained to survive alone, to obey orders without question. Now, she realized that survival could mean alliance, and mercy could be strength. Marcus looked at her, faint smile tugging at his lips. "You're learning, aren't you?" Lyra's lips curved slightly. "Perhaps. There is more than one way to exist." Outside, the storm had begun to ease, revealing the dark forest beyond. The threat of the Cithral Empire was not gone. They would regroup, reassess, and come again. But for now, Marcus and Lyra had proven something important. Survival was not just about weapons, strength, or orders. It was about trust, choice, and the courage to act against expectation. Marcus leaned against the counter, watching Lyra as she flexed her bandaged arms. "You fought well," he said quietly. Lyra's amber eyes softened. "I fought because you saved me first. That changes everything." "Then let's survive the next storm," Marcus replied, checking the barricades one more time. Lyra nodded, a rare smile forming on her angular features. "I will follow for now." The storm had arrived, bringing danger, chaos, and the reminder that life was fragile. But inside the cabin, two unlikely allies had learned the power of mercy, trust, and choice. And as long as they had each other, there was hope. Outside, shadows moved through the forest, silent and patient. But Marcus Hale and Lyra Corrin were ready. Together, they would face whatever came next. For now, the storm had passed. The real fight was only beginning.